Okay, sorry. I've been sitting at going live for 2 minutes now. But thank you. The Florida Gators win their game against Eastern Washington 52-17. And this one's just going to be a brief, you know, 15-ish minute episode. Tomorrow we will have a full episode out. As always, 3 a.m. podcast platforms, 8 a.m. on YouTube. Tuesday, you're not going to have a tape Tuesday. Just going to get that out there now because I'm not going to have access to that film in time to actually set it up and do it. But Florida Gators win the game 52-17, which is a big win here. I know it's Eastern Washington, and Florida should have handled them and should have beaten them very handedly. But we will take wins wherever we can. We saw Samford last year, where Florida didn't have a great game, and they almost dropped the game to an FCS team. But Anthony Richardson, my word, he was absolutely dealing today. It was just fantastic football. He was just going nuts against them. Like that was just again fantastic football by Anthony Richardson. He just finished 6 for 9, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, which was a bad one. We'll say I think we could all agree that yeah, that was a pretty bad interception that he threw. But yeah, it was just a good game overall. You liked what you saw from the Florida Gators offensively, that they were throwing the ball deep, they were challenging vertically. Yeah, also say whatever you guys want in the chat. I will acknowledge everything in the second half of this bonus episode. So yeah, so say whatever you want in the chat. I'll acknowledge it in the second half of this bonus episode while we get going. But yeah, I mean, it was just a great game from Anthony Richardson. The confidence was wheeling and dealing out there. Big plays after big plays was fantastic to see because this was a Florida Gators offense. And again, we'll talk about this more tomorrow, but this was a Florida Gators offense that for the first 3 games of the season really didn't challenge vertically often. And that was the thing I would complain about last year as well with the Florida Gators. They didn't challenge vertically. You don't need to be a great deep passing team, but make them respect the deep ball. And that's something that under Dan Mullen, the Florida Gators didn't do very often. That's something that in the first 3 games under Billy Napier, they didn't do often. And then against Tennessee, they had to do it. And they kept it going against Eastern Washington. One of my concerns was that they would just go, okay, let's just run the ball out. Let's just run the clock out. And let's get out of here with a big win over a lesser opponent and walk away with that and just say that we're happy with that one. Luckily, the Gators did not do that. They threw the ball vertically often, and it was beautiful when it worked. I loved watching the crossing patterns from Anthony Richardson, or with Keon Zipperer, Anthony Richardson connecting with him. Keon Zipperer is someone who I feel like I've been talking about for a long time now, just saying let him make plays. 2 catches, 48 yards for him. One was 27 yards, one was 21 yards, and those were his only 2 targets. It was great there. We finally saw the offense work the reverse and the wide receiver screens. Not really, but we saw them work the reverse with Ricky Pearsall instead of Xavier Henderson, and it's like thank goodness we finally saw a creative wide receiver play with the creative wide receiver. Like that's incredibly infuriating that we hadn't seen it. Justin Shorter had 1 catch. It was on the first play from scrimmage for the Gators, 75 yards, touchdown. So Justin Shorter continuing with his little hot streak that he's going. And I thank goodness Anthony Richardson and him are finally starting to connect, because Justin Shorter is the type of receiver that Anthony Richardson should be trying to connect with frequently. That's just what he does. He likes to throw the deep ball. Justin Shorter can win the huge majority of 50-50 balls, and he's one of those players where, like, it's not a 50-50 ball if you're throwing at Justin Shorter. It's a 60-40, 70-30, and that's what you love to see from a receiver like Justin Shorter, who's just big-bodied, ready to go up and make any contested catch, and ready to make a big play whenever he's asked to do it. Should we talk about the defense? Because like 17 points, not bad to give up 17 points. So there's that. But also, that first couple of drives were just so bad by the Florida Gators defense. It was just no push. And again, we're going to talk about this more, but I don't know what it is, but there's just not enough talent right now in this Florida Gators defense to really be a competitive team. And competitive, you can compete with most of the teams you're going to play against, But when you play those top tier talents, you're going to struggle a bit. And we saw the defense struggle against Tennessee. We saw them struggle against Eastern Washington. They struggled against pretty much every team they played that wasn't Utah. They played a great game against Utah, and pretty much since then they've struggled kind of bad. We'll see what happens when we get to Georgia and what Georgia's even going to look like, because last 2 weeks they haven't looked too hot. But this is overall just a big win from the Florida Gators. It was great to see how much depth played. I think we saw 6 tight ends play, which is just fantastic. For the huge majority of the season, we were seeing 2 tight ends play, and that was it for the entirety of the game, besides maybe 1 or 2 plays where someone else would step in. But for the huge majority of the season, it was Keon Zipperer, Dante Sanders on the field, and they were the only tight ends that would play consistently. And it was sometimes Jonathan Odom, sometimes Nick Elksnis, but aside from that, it was just very, I want to say very thin at tight end, where we would only see those 2 guys. So it was great to see Noah Keeter played a pretty significant amount. Nick Elksnis played a pretty significant amount. Jonathan Odom played a pretty significant amount. We also saw, Keon Zipperer, Dante Sanders, of course, were out there. And there was one more tight end that played that I'm trying to just look at the list because I can't think of it off the top of my head. But yeah, it was a great game for the Florida Gators. Depth-wise, a ton of depth was on the field today. That was fantastic to see. I'm still trying to think of that other tight end. I'm sorry. I'm trying to just think of the last tight end that played. We saw Keon Zipperer, Dante Sanders, Noah Keeter, Nick Elksnis, Jonathan Odom, and Griffin McDowell was the last tight end that played. He didn't play much that I saw, not expected to play much, but it was it was nice to see. So we did see that. We're about to take a look at the chat, which hasn't been lit. I know there's a Florida Gators press conference going on right now, so not really expecting it to be lit. But first, we're going to have to take a quick break with a quick word from sponsors, because as the sun comes out and small businesses are back in business, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier for you to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people that you want to interview faster and for free. And if you've never used LinkedIn Jobs before, I highly recommend it. It's how I got my last job on the receiving end of LinkedIn Jobs before I got locked on gig. And I mean, it's fantastic. With simple tools like screening questions, it makes it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience that you're looking for to hire. Because I mean, there's quite a few people that are not super qualified there. So at least with LinkedIn Jobs, you kind of get to take that approach early on. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates that you want to talk to faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And the Florida Gators going into this game were at 39.5-point favorites on BetOnline. They did not cover that spread because, well, Florida didn't want to cover the spread, I guess. I don't know. They don't like covering the spread is my point when they're favorites. I don't get it, but they insist on not covering the spread, especially when it's a big spread like the South Florida game. BetOnline is your #1 source for all of your betting needs and sports information. I've been using BetOnline for almost 6 years now. It's got so much, not just football, baseball, basketball, soccer, hockey, tennis, darts, ping pong. You could bet on politics. I know you could bet on the Brazilian election, which, by the way, is happening this week. So get your bets in there real quick if you can. Head to the website today or use your mobile device on all about the trends and action. Check out BetOnline. It's where the game starts. Now we're wrapping up this little bonus postcast here, talking about just this game. I know the chat was not live. Travis said it was awesome to see the young guys balling and Lingard, which I like that you had to specify that he is not a young guy. But yes, it was awesome to see so many young players play for the Florida Gators. I mean, Jalen Kitna was an absolute breath of fresh air for the Gators. We spent so much time saying, what if Anthony Richardson gets hurt? What happens then while Jack Miller III is still out? And Jalen Kitna came out and balled 10 of 13 passing, 208 yards and a touchdown. But I think the thing that stood out more to me with Jalen Kitna was his just absolute his confidence, his gunslinger mentality. He just throw these balls that probably shouldn't have been thrown, but they were connected. They were tight window throws. That's the thing where I was like, I don't care if it's Eastern Washington. These are tight window throws that are being completed by Jalen Kitna. So it gives you a little bit of comfort knowing that if something happens to Anthony Richardson, which I'll knock on wood because we're hoping doesn't happen. But if something does, then you're at least a little more secure with your backup quarterback situation there. Running backs, I mean, we saw Eddie Battle play. We saw Lorenzo Lingard play for the first time. We saw Carlton Joseph play. And that's just, it's something that we hadn't seen depth-wise. Obviously, none of them got a ton of carries. Lorenzo Lingard, 544 and a touchdown. Eddie Battle, 2 for 31. And Carlton Joseph, 2 carries, 6 yards. It was just refreshing to see that much depth. Hopefully they don't play for the rest of the season. If we're being honest, that's just not what we want. We want to see the main 3 running backs play along with Anthony Richardson and a wide receiver run mixed in here and there. But also depth-wise, Dejon Reynolds, 2 catches, 74 yards, along with 54, which is his career long. Caleb Douglas made his Gators debut. 1 catch, 3 targets. All 3 of them were just legitimately just go routes. Caught one of them 62 yards. I mean, it was just a great play. It was a beautiful connection. Jalen Kitna clearly has a chemistry with PayDay Douglas, which I'm cool with. Like you have a quarterback that has a favorite target as a receiver. That's a good thing to have. It's great to go, oh, he doesn't have favorites. He's just going to throw to the open man. But there's also such a thing as chemistry, and clearly Jalen Kitna and Caleb Douglas have it. Maybe next year, if Anthony Richardson isn't in Gainesville, maybe that's a duo that we'll be seeing quite a bit of. Xavier Henderson got targeted. Hear me out. Down the field, which was fantastic. But we saw Khalil Jackson had a fantastic catch, just fully extended towards the sideline. It was a beautiful, beautiful catch there. It was just incredible to see. Offensive line, we got to see quite a bit of changes. We saw Austin Barber play. He started at right tackle. He played left tackle when depth came in, which made a lot of sense considering he's been kind of pinpointed as the future at left tackle. So seeing him play left tackle, Cameron Wade's playing right tackle, is exactly what we were hoping to see. Miguel Mitchell, I don't know what it was, finally playing, and he played great. He forced a fumble in the backfield. Princely Omanmielen woke up a little bit, and he forced a fumble. He had a strip sack himself. Derek Wingo played. Kamari Wilson got the start. Obviously, Scooby Williams played. Jaden Hill made his return, which we'll talk about. It wasn't a great return, but it's also like he's just coming back from pretty much almost 2 years. It's been, 20 months since he played. So he's just coming back from that. So you don't expect to see anything great. Did make a fantastic play on 4th down. Chris McClellan played well. Justice Boone I didn't really see many plays. Javon Dexter just completely disappeared. I don't know what it is, but that man is on the ground. So I don't want to be coach 30 with it, but he was on the ground a lot. DeJuan Black played. I can't pretend that he played well. He played briefly, but I cannot pretend that he played well. It was pretty much just him running around like his hair is on fire and making plays. But again, you want someone who's doing what they're supposed to be doing, and he kind of just seemed like he was just going rover consistently. So it was great to see the young guys play, especially when we're like, well, the old guys that are starting are making a ton of plays. Kitna looked decent. Proud to see him and do. Yeah, Dominic. Yeah, I mean, Jalen Kitna looked phenomenal. Honestly, considering the expectations, he looked phenomenal. I get it. It's Eastern Washington, but again, he was making tight window throws fairly consistently, and he was doing it. Just that's the thing that you love with that confidence. Is a lot of times a backup quarterback will come into the game and just be like, okay, just don't screw up. Just don't screw up. And Jalen Kitna was just letting it fly. He was just slinging it downfield with reckless abandon, and I loved it. So Jalen Kitna, at least, I think when Jack Miller is fully healthy, I know he's questionable going into the game. Obviously, ended up not dressing, not playing. But when Jack Miller III is healthy, it's going to be interesting to see who's going to be listed as a backup quarterback because, Jack Miller III did not have a fantastic spring, did not have a fantastic just pre-season, that whole process. So it's interesting to see if it's going to be Jalen Kitna or Jack Miller III. I think we're looking at that backup quarterback spot being open again, especially going into next year when a lot of people are thinking Anthony Richardson won't be in Gainesville. Personally, I think unless he keeps up this past 2-week stretch, I think he will be back in Gainesville. But it's good to have a little bit of comfort at backup quarterback because it was just a bunch of guys who had never touched the field. Where again, Jalen Kitna wasn't playing Bama out there today, but playing Eastern Washington, he did his job, and that's a very important thing that people are not going to talk about enough, although they should. Gonna wrap up this postcast. We will have an episode tonight, 3 a.m. Eastern time on audio platforms. We will have 8 a.m. as always tomorrow morning to talk about this game more and bigger takeaways from the game. But thank you. I'm Brandon Olson from Locked On Gators. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, review, all that stuff. And I will see you all tomorrow.